Sunita and Satya, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Sunita, and I'm a women's rights activist and a progressive Hindu activist. And today I'm a mom.
Hi, I'm Satya. I'm a sophomore in high school. I'm pansexual, yes, Hindu and Jewish.
Wonderful, welcome.
And I am a writer and educator, and obviously also a mom. We're also both a Hindu and Jewish household, actually, so that's interesting. Anyone want to introduce yourself?
And I like playing basketball, and I am also Hindu and Jewish, and I go by they, them pronouns.
Welcome. There are quite a few Hindu Jewish households here tonight, so I'm from one as well. So particular welcome to my fellow comrades, and also I would like to bring in I believe Banu is. Will you be introducing yourself?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. So my name is Banu Sankaran. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a practicing Hindu as well. I come from a Hindu, raised as a Hindu and practicing Hinduism. I am a mom of a trans son. And, I'm happy to join this panel today and also contribute to the celebration, which is a joyful occasion for all of us.
Excellent, welcome. And I believe also there's, is there anyone else who's actually joining in from the panel? Or is that all? That's good. Okay, excellent. Okay, so I want this to be a very organic space. So I'm just going to post some questions out there about your experiences, but feel free to respond to other panelists and how they feel and how their comments have made you feel. So first of all, I think Pallavi and we both spoke about the importance of having that little intersectional spaces, like that Venn diagram where our different identities meet. So what does that mean for you, each of you, having this intersectional space between your identities?
Being from one of many, it seems, Jewish Indian households, both, or at least in Hinduism, the way I was raised and taught about the culture and the mythology and all of that, it was always inclusive. There are trans characters, there are deities that personally, like Kali, I've always envisioned as queer. And I've seen that in like modern day India being erased. And yet it's always been really important to me. And I've always really valued the fact that in my family, that inclusiveness stays such a central part. Like we have the orange at the Passover Seder for gender inclusivity. We have all of just the way I've been taught all about Hinduism. It's always been such a central idea. The fact that we can love everyone and I can be who I am.
Love that. Be who you are. Love that. Do our other panelists want to also share their experiences?
Can I give a parent's perspective? Okay. So intersectional spaces, right? So for me, I think Desi Rainbow is one such space because that's where I felt like as a South Asian parent of a trans son, I could just be myself and talk about all the challenges and also celebrate our children, right? So this was a really beautiful space for me. And what that has done for me is once I started sharing in this space, now I proudly share to everyone about my son. So I have no hesitation. I have no, in fact, recently we had a town hall where I was at work, where I volunteered to talk about inclusion and diversity. And I actually, when I talked about LGBTQ, I mentioned my trans son to an audience of about 150 people. And I don't think I would have had the courage to do that if I didn't have the space where I could be myself. I could talk about my son, the way it should be, and not feel embarrassed or awkward or anything like that. So I think those spaces, I think, are very, very important. And it really helps us be who we are from a parent's perspective.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Wonderful. And yes, everything is about our experiences here. And so make it as there's no right or wrong answers when it comes to our experience of intersectionality. So welcome. My next question that I have is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I mean, I don't have to talk much, but I thought yeah, it's an interesting question because I definitely have noticed over the years that as a queer person that I either participated but held back in Hindu spaces or just didn't feel like I could really do it. Like I definitely have my friends and community members who I might invite to my household who I know are inclusive and embracing, but in larger spaces, I never quite felt completely free. And I think that more recently I've just been questioning how much of that I have power within myself, because I'm thinking of even the story that told of how Mahishasura was a shape-shifting demon. And I think of oppression as very much a shape-shifting demon, which of course throughout time and history and region has taken so many forms, but also inside myself, I feel can take many forms. And I feel like one of the roles or one of the beauties of intersectional spaces is that I don't feel like I don't feel like any of it comes up, but then I can carry inside myself this freedom that that can be cultivated in spaces where people are accepting and where there's inclusion, and break down some of that voice inside myself that tells myself that I need to stay separate or need to, not be myself in those spaces.
Excellent. Great. Actually, I'm going to backtrack a little bit to actually Satya's story, and it's going to bring it into story as well. What do you actually have as symbols that you take from these spaces and bring into your personal lives to represent kind of the intersectional of these different identities? I was thinking of the orange. That was actually what that started that. And you mentioned that sometimes you bring that strength from these spaces to wherever you go. What are the other things that you use to bring that strength with you?
I can jump in, and I'm one of the co-founders of Sadhana, and Sadhana, it's been a while now because of COVID, but we would have these beautiful in-person satsangs, and Pratimaji, who's going to do the puja soon, would do our puja, and the deity that we would always have is the Ardhanarishvara. And so to me, that's the most beautiful, age-old, time immemorial symbol of God has no gender. There's no boundaries, there's no limit. And we did one of those satsangs that we did was in Aruna's house. And it was this beautiful, it wasn't a Zoom screen, it was in her living room. And Pratima again did the puja. And it was one of those glorious moments. And I'm so grateful to Desi Rainbow and Sadhana, of course, but Desi Rainbow for creating this inclusive space. And as a Hindu Jewish household, inclusivity is central to everything that we do. And we did the puja, and of course it was very moving, but then we went around and everybody in the room spoke, and one by one, and the people in the room were really from the Desi Rainbow community. So everybody was trans or queer in one way or another. And one by one, there were actually tears and emotions of how rare it is to feel whole in a Hindu space in particular. And I'll never forget that day. And this feels as profound as that day. And today I'm with my kid who is being welcomed into that space. So just gratitude and, joy.
I love that. Anyone else want to add on to that?
Was your question specifically about symbols?
It doesn't have to be symbols. It can be, it can be anything you want. It can be actually a physical symbol, or it could be a message that you carry from spaces like this to other spaces. Any thoughts? Okay. I guess another question is, since this is specifically an event about Dussehra, is there specific activities you do during Navaratri and Dussehra that center around LGBTQ themes? I know Ardhanarishwara is Mahishasuramardini, I think actually might be more around this time, but are there specific other traditions or stories that you bring into your celebrations that you draw from your LGBTQ plus and allied identities?
Maybe I can talk a little bit about Golu, the way we celebrate. So I'm from Tamil Nadu and I do Golu every year. And though I don't have any LGBTQ symbols in my Golu yet, next year, once this pandemic was over, I was going to look into that and get something that represents, something that my son would appreciate. But what I do want to mention is that my youngest one, my trans son, is a big part of Navratri and Golu. It's his favorite holiday. And so he sets up, I just set up the steps and then he sets up everything. And I'll show later, he has his own little Golu that he does. And he still is very passionate about Golu. And this is one holiday that I feel like, it's something that is a tradition that helps, I think, for me and my son to really bond and do this Golu and set it up. And if I do it by mistake, even if I put one doll on the step before he comes from school, he gets really, really mad. So I've learned my lesson. So I wait for him and we do it together. So that's, for me, is very special. And also I take him, when people invite us for Golu, he comes with me. And I introduce him as my son to everyone. And everybody's accepted, at least, I don't know what they discuss behind my back, but at least when I go to their house, they're very, very cordial and they accept my son and they seem to be supportive. So Golu time used to be a little scary for me because I wasn't sure how to approach and how to introduce my son, whom they knew was born female. But I think this Golu, what I've realized is that I can be, I can just introduce him and he is who he is. And I want everyone to accept him. So this Navratri was special because he came with me to all the houses as my son. So, yeah.
It's wonderful. Are there other holidays? It doesn't have to be Hindu holidays too. And I actually, when I think about this, I think about the upcoming Christmas and Thanksgiving season. Are there certain activities or symbols you do in those upcoming holidays that bring your different identities? I know personally for me, I always make a big vegetable pilaf for Thanksgiving. So like, if anybody is vegetarian or vegan, you can pretty much be careful. You can be safe with my vegetable pilaf. So that's like part of me bringing my Hindu identity to a Thanksgiving. So is there something that you bring from your identities to other holidays that are outside of the Hindu cultural realm?
For Hanukkah, we obviously, or one of the food staples is a matzo ball soup, which is traditionally in like a chicken broth, but we're vegetarian. And so what we've started doing is bringing some rasam to the dinner, and we'll put the matzo balls in the rasam, which is delicious, and it connects both. Yeah, it connects both of the cultures in a really beautiful way, I think.
And everybody wants the rasam.
Can I also attest, because I asked Sunny about this, because I do a Indian Passover meal every year, and Sunny recommended matzo ball soup and rasam. So I made puri rasam with matzo balls, and it was gone. Like, it lasted 5 minutes, and then everybody destroyed it. We were actually boiling more rasam on the stove to add to more matzo balls because we were like, we're gonna run out. So I will vouch for this dish.
We have to try that too, we decided now. Although we'll do the traditional one too, because both are fun. Although we could do vegetarian ones, right?
Mhm.
I don't know. So I was trying to think about your question about bringing queer experience to Navratri, and I think for me, just kind of speaking to the experience of feeling in the vast minority, I felt that way growing up as a Hindu as well, because I grew up in the UK and US, and there just weren't very many people celebrating around me. And so, we might do a quiet family puja. And if we did go to a temple event or something, it would be just for, one night rather than 9 nights. And so I feel like just trying to celebrate it all was something that I actually had to try. And as I grew older, I was curious, and so I started to learn more about the stories. And so one of the things that I tried to bring in on each day, I'll tell, what do we do?
So we do like yoga, and then she does like story yoga. So every time we like act out in yoga poses the stories that there are on Navratri.
So each of the days, the different versions of the goddess will do.
That's so lovely. That's very lovely.
Yeah, so to kind of change it up a little bit, Aruna just shared a question in the chat. So we're wondering, have you ever encountered rejection or any kind of shunning in your faith community spaces? And we're more asking this question along the lines of, how did you navigate through it? And do you have any suggestions or advice for people on it if they're in similar situations?
I can answer that because I have 3 sons. And when Satya's my youngest, he's 15. And when my 2 older boys were tiny and the younger was a baby, I had them tie Rakhi on each other as on Raksha Bandhan Day. And I thought it was cute and beautiful, and I really didn't think too much of it. I just was doing it because I thought it was beautiful. And I was divorced from my first husband, and my then in-law family really didn't take too kindly to me taking such liberties. It was somehow offensive. And I was young. I was a young mom. And I must say, I've grown up into somebody who celebrates this kind of reimagining of traditions and rituals. And I think today I would hope we would all tie Rakhi on each other. And this notion of the sister tying on the brother and the protection coming from the brother to the sister. I mean, come on, we really need to shake that up. So yeah, I mean, so that came to mind as you asked your question.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think I don't know about specifically around queerness, but I do think that there can be a lot of judgment that comes around the right way to celebrate things or the right way to do things. And for example, I have malas that I got in my dad's hometown that are I'll wear into a forest and I'll meditate there. And I had a friend who's just like, how can you, wear them where people can see them if you're, using them spiritually because you're not supposed to do that. And it's like, well, it's my practice and it's the way I hold it. And, what I feel and what I've internalized might be different than what someone else has. And of course, there's so many different practices. So I feel like, yeah, making spaciousness for how people relate to traditions and how how things change and evolve as people even household to household, right? Like, but actually, I have a question. Have you ever experienced anyone being judgmental in any spiritual space?
Well, I would say yes, but not in a spiritual space. Like, at school, I play basketball all the time, and it's actually really
So you're saying you've experienced judgment, but in terms of yeah, I guess my why I'm asking is that I feel like Jewish spaces and Hindu spaces we've gone into, people are accepting, and we're a queer family and people are totally accepting, right? And I think that's amazing. I think it's amazing that experience is just that everyone's inclusive and accepting.
That's so great to hear because I think that oftentimes there are stereotypes, and I can speak as as someone from a Hindu tradition. I think that oftentimes there's this stereotype that if you're religious, then that means that you're not going to be accepting of queer people. And so I'm just so glad to hear that you haven't had those sorts of experiences in your faith spaces. And Banu, did you ever have any experiences, or your family have any experiences with maybe rejection of queerness in any of your faith or community spaces?
Yeah, so I think haven't reached that point of sharing it. So I do. So Sony comes with me for the many years. We've been volunteering at a temple every Sunday. So this was even before he transitioned. So now, they can see a visible difference, like in the way he looks and behaves. He's socially transitioned, but not medically. So a couple of my friends, I felt comfortable enough to tell them, but I've been sort of debating some of the priests know him really well. And I don't know, I'm still uncomfortable if I should share Sony's identity or not. My friends say don't do it because they won't understand. And I'm nervous that, because this is something we have been doing together and we enjoy a lot. And I'm nervous that would they stop us from coming to the temple. So I'm still dealing with it now. Pallavi, I haven't reached that point. I'm still struggling internally on how broadly should I share in a Hindu space, because I don't know how they would react. And this is, like I said, this is the temple that we've been going for the last 6-7 years, and it would be heartbreaking if they say something. And so honestly, I don't know the answer today. So this is where I am.
I think it's okay to not have answers. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so important that, I love that there's happy stories that people are sharing, but I think it's also important to recognize that not everybody's story is going to be happy. I'm sure that not everybody who's joining us today probably has a wonderful story to say of full acceptance. So hearing that makes me very happy. So I'm very happy that both of you shared that, and sending my strength to you, Banuji, with your experiences in the future, and hope that you've experienced that kind of acceptance as well. Pallavi, did you want to share maybe any of your experiences with difficulties? Since you asked the question, I'm wondering if you have anything that you would like to share with the group.
Yeah, I think that, my specific situation may be a little bit different at the moment because in terms of being out about my trans identity, that's been more of like the last 3 or 4 years. And as I mentioned, I haven't really been religious, so I haven't really been in at least like temples. I'm the Hindu events that I've been to over the last like 3 or 4 years have mainly been through my like local South Asian queer and trans organizations. So I think because of that, it's been an accepting sort of space. But prior to that, when I was out as pansexual, I think the unique part about this is that everyone's interactions with Hinduism are different in how they practice it. For a lot of us, it's not like a church where maybe you go once a week, you always see the same people there. For me, it was always like, we may go to the temple once a month just around holidays, or because my sister just bought a new car and we need to bless the car, stuff like that. Although we would always have like our little prayer room in the house and things along those lines. So for me, I think it was really more of a matter of being in community maybe isn't the right word, being in Hindu spaces where I didn't know folks. Those were more where I might encounter hostility. And what I've noticed is generally that if I'm in a space where the folks already know me, or maybe they know one of my family members or my friend who I came with, they're going to be accepting. And I think that that's because we all see each other as part of the same community in that sense. And it's more when maybe you're an outsider, maybe like new to a town, new to that, the worship space or whichever faith-based space you're in. I think that's where folks might have kind of given me more of kind of this outsider sort of interaction. What's helped me in times like that is, going with a friend, with a loved one who I can trust, whether they're queer or trans or they're a cishet individual, having that sort of person there for support has been really helpful for me. And also if I'm with a friend who maybe has identities which are more privileged than mine in some ways, them kind of stepping in and embracing me warmly, or if an incident happens, speaking to that person, that's always been helpful. So I'd really say, like, for the allies or maybe for the parents, for the support figures in people's lives, that was like essentially what was really helpful to me.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I think that the call out to the allies is so important. Is a lot of times members of the LGBTQ plus community, we really do depend on your strength and your love and your support. I think we're a minority still in the world, although especially in my friend group, it feels like that's not the case. But we do depend on the allies and the support that they bring to our spaces. So thank you for that.